email automatically when the session is done. All right, so let's jump in. Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor are really the two applications that make up our automated proctoring solution for higher education institutions. These applications together are used by more than 1,500 colleges and universities all over the world, with hundreds of millions of exams each year. And they support a lot of different online testing scenarios at an institution. We're focusing today on Respondus Monitor, which often is used in fully remote situations, but not always, and we can talk about that too. Now, these applications all start, or our solution all starts with Lockdown Browser. Lockdown Browser, if those of you aren't familiar with it, is a custom browser that prevents cheating during online tests. And it's the standard for locking down a student's device during online exams. Now, Lockdown Browser is typically used alone in proctored settings, like classrooms or testing centers, where someone's watching the student, right? Because it is just it's an application that works on the student's device. But it's a required component for Respondus Monitor, which is what we're going to focus on today. And when I say it's a custom browser, that means a few things. And in this example, Lockdown Browser is customized to the WebAssign platform. It's supported, provided, and supported by Cengage WebAssign directly. So we do not license this version of Lockdown Browser directly to you. You'll find that it's built into your WebAssign courses. But it's required for Respondus Monitor, so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it a little bit first today. I'm going to show you just really quickly what a test looks like in Lockdown Browser. So this is a WebAssign exam. I'm in the locked browser application, like as a student. You'll notice that it's open full screen. There's no menu or web address field at the top, so I can't type in another web address and go somewhere else. There's also no other way to open another tab or window here. It's also prevents students from printing, capturing screen content, visiting other websites, accessing other applications, and yes, that includes ChatGPT and other AI tools. And it even stops them from some technically sophisticated things like using remote desktops, virtual machines, or impersonation tools. You'll also notice that you can't minimize or resize the browser window, and it won't let students use function, command keys, keyboard shortcuts, the right-click mouse menu. And lastly, at the bottom, you can't see my start button, system tray, shelf, or dock, things that will prevent the student from switching to another application, opening another file, or accessing tools on their device that will let them get content they shouldn't be using or share test questions. The idea is to keep them locked into the test environment so they can't, so all they do is take the test and they can't access resources you don't want them to access. But remember that the test is still in your WebAssign course. So the content of the test questions, the settings, how it's graded, those things are all handled entirely by the WebAssign platform. We're just using a different browser here. So again, when used by itself, Lockdown Browser does a great job in those proctored settings. But by itself, it doesn't address a few key concerns that Respondus Monitor will. Namely, if students are using external resources like notes or a calculator they shouldn't have or a phone. And then, of course, who is the student, right? We want to make sure that we've identified the test taker. That's where Respondus Monitor comes in. So again, Respondus Monitor builds on Lockdown Browser. That's why I showed you Lockdown Browser first. But what Respondus Monitor does is it provides a fully automated proctoring solution that's available on demand. That means that you do not have to schedule exams in advance. Students do not have to wait for the availability of a proctor or a window with the applications open. You just set up your tests the way you want to in WebAssign, and students can take them using Respondus Monitor. Now, Respondus Monitor uses the student's webcam to record them during the online test, in addition to them being locked into the test environment with Lockdown Browser. And then it analyzes the video and exam session, providing meaningful results back to the instructor so that you can see, if you need to, what the students are doing, but really you're able to scan data quickly, analyze it, and figure out if you do need to spend more time with any of the student videos. The full video is provided, but we give you high-level data that you can use to efficiently review students' exam sessions. Last but not least, the goal of Respondus Monitor is to provide a deterrent to cheating. This is really the first thing that I should have said. So we're using Lockdown Browser to prevent digital cheating on the student's device, and we're also recording the student. They know they're being recorded, so the risk that they'll be caught cheating is very high. So the biggest value of Respondus Monitor is its deterrence factor. So let's show you what it looks like. That's enough of an overview. I'm going to jump into a WebAssign course where I'm going to show you how to set up a test to require the use of Respondus Monitor. We've got a setting that we enable, and then we have a bunch of customizations that we can do. We're going to talk in a little bit about how the options for licensing Respondus Monitor work. There's a one-time setup that your Cengage representative will need to do, but we're going to assume that that's done and jump right into the settings. So let me switch my screen to a WebAssign course where I already have my license set up. Now I'm on the scheduling page here for my WebAssign tests. So I navigated to where I've already created some tests. You can do this as you're creating the test, or you can add the setting later. What we're going to do first here is, from this drop-down menu, select Edit the Restrictions for the test. Here you're going to see under the security and time restrictions a checkbox for Lockdown Browser, which I already have on. It's either on or it's off. Then once the license has been set up, right, we're assuming this is done, we'll get back to how this gets there, you'll want to select the Respondus Monitor option. So the initial step is just a checkbox on or off. Then you'll notice that you'll be able to access something called the Respondus Monitor dashboard to further customize the test experience. So when we save that setting with each test, you're going to see a link to that dashboard. It's the same dashboard for all your tests. Let's open that. So here in the Lockdown Browser, the Respondus Monitor dashboard, we see a list of the tests that we've applied the Respondus Monitor setting to already. So we were working on this practice quiz. I'm going to select Advanced Settings because now I can further customize the Respondus Monitor application depending on what I might need for the exam. The first choice you see at the top of the screen is the ability for the instructor to either record the student's webcam video only, or additionally record the screen where the student is working. Now, this video of the screen and the video of the student are both displayed in the post-exam results. We're going to show that in a minute, and they're synchronized up. So you can look at any point in time and see all of the data points about it. So the screen recording video, the webcam video, and there's other data there too. Now, some instructors, might think, do I need screen recording? We're using Lockdown Browser. I don't need to watch to see if students are trying to switch to another application because Lockdown Browser blocks that up front. But a lot of instructors want the screen recording for a couple of very good reasons. One, if the student claims they had a technical issue or there was a problem with the exam, like maybe there was supposed to be an image and it didn't load, you would have a video of that happening. So you'd be able to verify the student's issue. The second reason is sometimes instructors want to see how the students are thinking, right? If you're doing some work, if you're, making some calculations and the student goes wrong and they don't understand why, you can work with the student to see where they might have made a mistake. So it's part of the learning experience. I'm going to just record the webcam and the screen, and we'll talk about what that looks like in the results later. The rest of what we see here are some items that you can customize. Most of these steps here in the startup sequence, that's the pre-exam steps that the student will go through before the exam begins, can be turned off, and a lot of them can even be edited. So there's directions that go with them that you can change based on what you need. You can also preview them from here, so we can see what the step is going to look like before we choose to use it or not use it. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of them. They're fairly self-explanatory. We have some additional directions, guidelines and tips, the ability to capture a photo of the student or of their ID, the ability to have the student record a video of their surroundings. But I want to focus on the two steps that are not selectable, right? You can't turn these off. At the top of this list is something called the webcam check. Now, the webcam check is basically the student's technical setup step. We're going to make sure the student's webcam is working properly, microphone, internet connection, all that good stuff. And it's also one of several places the student can access live chat and troubleshooting support if they need it. We're going to show you what that looks like from the student side of things. And then the very last step here is called face detection. And this is making sure the student is clearly visible in the video, right? For the post-exam results, you want to be able to see your students. Face detection includes alerts to make sure the student doesn't do things like tilt their camera or sit in the dark. And then you can also decide a little bit more about how face detection works with these face detection options down here to prevent the student from beginning or notify them during the exam if they fail face detection later. Now I skipped over this proctor setting here, but I'll come back and explain. This allows you to set up Respondus Monitor, one test, and had two choices for the student of where they can take the test. This is part of how Respondus Monitor can be really flexible for students, instructors, and institutions. So if you choose to use this setting, what you're doing is telling your students, you can either take this test remotely with Respondus Monitor and be recorded with a webcam, or you can come into a proctored setting. If the student chooses a proctored setting, as this note explains, they only need to use Lockdown Browser, but they will need to be let into the test with a password because we want to make sure they're not going to take that test at home with Lockdown Browser and no video or no supervision. So as the instructor, you would set this test up with this setting and just create a password that then either you use to let students into the test or you provide that password to a proctor. And then we have a couple of advanced settings down here. I'll just point out show your work because this is an especially helpful setting for any type of exam where you want the student to perform something in writing. Maybe you want them to show some calculations or draw a diagram that you can't do in the online exam. Show your work enables or requires really that the student take photos of handwritten work after the exam. So you can capture up to 20 photos. They're full size, high resolution. They'll have timestamps with them. And you can also even edit the directions that go with them. And those become part of the post-exam results in Respondus Monitor. All right, I'm going to save and close all those settings because what I want to do is move ahead and show you the results. So luckily, let me close this to just remember how we got here. In our schedule, on our list of quizzes here, we open the Respondus Monitor dashboard. This pops in a different window. From here, you'll see the settings that we just reviewed and then the results. So what happens when a student takes an exam that requires Respondus Monitor with Lockdown Browser is they take the test, they get recorded, and then our system starts to process and analyze the video and the data, and you will see these results usually within about 5 to 10 minutes after the student submits the exam. So it's very fast. Now I need to switch to another screen here to show you some real results. I don't have any in my course. We don't have real students in this course yet. But when you open those results, you're going to see something like this. This is your class roster. So you have all the students listed here by last name, first name, and then they're sorted using this review priority system. This is a simple ranking system that puts the students' videos in these high, medium, low categories, which is based on a few factors from each student's exam video. This is a great indicator for instructors to use to identify which exam sessions might require deeper scrutiny. Other useful data points are here though too. You can sort by the date the student submitted the exam, their grade. Sometimes instructors want to look at those super high grades because maybe the student did something and they didn't deserve that grade, duration of the video, and more. You'll also notice that as I'm sorting this, there's a setting over here in the upper right-hand corner that allows me to adjust the sensitivity of the ranking, the priority ranking, and the flagging. So if I gave, for example, an open book test, I might want to relax how many flags or how high a ranking is for a student because I know students are going to be looking away, looking down, using paper, doing things that in a different type of exam might look like cheating. You can adjust this in the post-exam results. This is not a feature you have to decide how you want to use before you give the test. And if I were to select apply, these results would be recalculated based on the setting I choose. There's also a feature here that lets me turn on or off an extra flag for handheld devices. So that's if a student is using a phone or maybe a calculator and it's visible in the video, we put a flag there for it. So instructors are able to turn that off if, for example, they allow students to use a calculator or maybe a tablet or something while they're taking the exam. Now, if I need to, and I see something that I don't like, a high priority ranking, an outlier in terms of the grade or duration of the exam, I can expand the student's record right in line here and review the results. So what you're seeing right here, and I'm going to make this like a tiny bit bigger if I can, this is the student's video, and below the video is a video player control. So I can click play, and I can start to watch the video, right, if I needed to. Now, most instructors don't. You skip around. So you can skip ahead in 10-second increments. You can watch the video faster. You can even use this timeline here to drag the video to different points in time. Even easier though, over here on the right-hand side, we have a list, and the student has quite a few things that happened during this exam, these flagged events. So I can click on any one of these flags and go right to the point in time that the flag happened. But what most instructors do, really, because this is faster, is just scroll down to these thumbnails. So now these little images here are showing you the entire exam session at a high level view. So I can scan these thumbnails very quickly, and obviously I see right here the camera's pointed at the ceiling, so I can click on that and I can go to that point in time in the video and watch it if I need to. The thumbnails also include the top row here where there might be things like the student who showed an ID, and that opens pretty big. If you had the student take an environment video or other photos, those elements will appear right here. Now, what you're also seeing in this example is the screen recording. So if I chose to record the screen, I can switch to see the screen recording view, and you'll notice that the flagged events and all of these thumbnails here are going to line up. So you can see exactly what's happening in the student video and the screen recording at the same time. All right, so we did a pretty quick review of the post-exam results. We also just did a review of what data is available to you. I want to point out a few other things that might be useful. First of all, you have this great guide in the upper right-hand corner of the proctoring results screen called Understanding Proctoring Results. I strongly recommend that anybody using this application review this before you use it so you know what to expect. I just did a very quick review, but there's a lot more data here. The two things I usually point out on this screen, or a couple things, is you've got a key to the different pieces we just walked through. You also have some frequently asked questions and some great tips for using this data. The two things I want to remind instructors when you're using an automated proctoring solution like Respondus Monitor is, well, in our case, the flags and the high priority ranking do not necessarily mean the student cheated. This is objective data, right? There are predetermined events. You decide if the student violated your exam rules or not, or if you need to talk to the student about it, but we're just giving you data points that you can use. There's a lot of data, but you can review it very efficiently, as we just saw. The second thing I like to point out is at the top of the screen here. It's this point that I made in the beginning. The goal of Respondus Monitor, really the goal of any proctoring system, is to prevent cheating from happening in the first place. You're telling students we want a fair test environment. You're making sure that no student has an advantage over another because they're taking the test in an unmonitored situation. You're locking them in with lockdown browser. They can't access other resources on their device. And you have a recording of the entire exam session along with all this other data like the screen recording and the flagged events and so on. The idea is that the student knows they're being recorded and they know that you have access to this data should you need to review it. But the hope is you don't need to spend a lot of time reviewing data. In fact, instructors report back to us, they usually spend about 15, 20 seconds per student reviewing the data I just walked through. All right, so I've made my important points about the post-exam review. Let's now talk about what this looks like as a student, and it will tie everything together. So when students are using Respondus Monitor and Lockdown Browser, they do need to have Lockdown Browser installed. Now, the version of Lockdown Browser that works with WebAssign and all of our other publisher platforms is specific to those platforms. You cannot have students use the same version of Lockdown Browser that they would use with their Canvas quizzes, their Blackboard tests, their Brightspace courses. So if you're at an institution that uses Lockdown Browser already with your online course platform, just know that students will need to install a second version of Lockdown Browser for WebAssign. It's really easy though. They can have two versions of Lockdown Browser on the same device. It doesn't matter. And they don't really need to know which is which, because as you're going to see in a moment with WebAssign, it automatically launches the browser or the right version of the browser for them. There is also support for managed devices. So those would be devices that your institution owns. Maybe it's in a computer lab, or you loan laptops to students, or you even have a one-to-one program. You'll want to contact your Cengage WebAssign representative for the managed installation, because we don't provide that directly. They provide all the support for Lockdown Browser. And the devices that students can use to take tests with Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor in WebAssign are Windows and Mac computers. WebAssign is working on Chromebook and iPad support, so that will be coming soon. Now, if the student has never used Lockdown Browser before, it will automatically launch after they've installed it. So let me show you what those screens look like when the student starts a test. And then when they're using Respondus Monitor, they just need a webcam additionally, right? So it can be the webcam that's built into their laptop or their device. It can be the kind they plug in. It doesn't matter. Respondus Monitor will detect and use whatever the student has available. So in this case, what I'm showing you is me logged into a WebAssign course as a student, and I've navigated to my Unit 1 quiz, and I'll see this screen that says Lockdown Browser with Respondus Monitor is required. So I'm warning the student that they need this application. And right here, there would be the ability to download and install the browser too. I already have it installed, so it's telling me I can launch it. But the student can download and install the Lockdown Browser from here. This is not Lockdown Browser yet. This is a regular browser. You can tell because it has like all these little buttons at the top. But when the student is ready and they click Launch Lockdown Browser, the browser will open, and we'll switch our screen into Lockdown Browser. So the student will then have their desktop or home screen covered. Again, you won't see things like the start button, system tray, dock, and so on. But before they see the test, with Respondus Monitor, students need to go through the pre-exam steps. Remember, these were the steps that were in the settings when we were looking at the settings as an instructor. So the student would review and agree to a terms of use. Then they would do a webcam check. So it's going to be a little video to make sure that the webcam and microphone and internet is all working correctly. If anything isn't working, it'll either pop up a message saying, hey, we don't detect a webcam at all. Here are some things you should do to enable that. Or the student can click this link down here that I've highlighted called It's Not Working. When they do that, they'll go through a troubleshooting sort of questionnaire. What's the issue? Let's give you some possible resolutions to that issue. And if you still need help, you can select live chat. Our live chat is 24/7, 365. It's built into Respondus Monitor. Students don't need to download anything extra for this. We have an excellent team of agents who are really friendly and knowledgeable, and they generally can resolve about 95% of students' issues in just a few minutes. The one thing that they can't do is give students extra time on a test or change the settings, because we don't have access to your WebAssign courses. Plus, you don't want us making those decisions anyway. So encourage your students to use the live chat for any technical issues. Hopefully they don't need it and they can just go through the rest of the steps in the pre-exam process. This is what those additional directions might look like if you use and customize this step. The guidelines and tips we saw a little bit earlier, where there's screens that give the students reminders about taking tests remotely. If you have the student take a photo of themselves or a photo of their ID, it will use their webcam to capture that photo, and the photo on the right-hand side is what gets displayed in your proctoring results. And then you might have students do the environment check or the face detection step, but before they begin the exam. If not, they'll just begin the exam. And it looks just like it looked earlier. We are still in Lockdown Browser. Students can't access other digital resources. They're being recorded. You see that little recording icon there in the upper right? So that video is recording right now. Maybe it's the screen and the webcam video, but the student doesn't see their own video because that can provoke anxiety. It can be distracting. And we also don't really want to remind the student that they're being recorded. We just want them to forget about it and focus on this really difficult question that I don't even understand because I chose calculus as my sample content here. When the student submits the exam and they're done, They might be prompted to show their work. If you use that setting, this is what that looks like. It'll take their webcam, take these photos, and those photos will be collected and timestamped and provided back to you so you can evaluate them later. And then once they submit and they're done, they'll see a confirmation screen. The webcam recording is complete. Now you can close Lockdown Browser. So I'm going to preemptively answer a couple of frequently asked questions that we get about how Respondus Monitor works. And one really important question that almost always comes up when using proctoring tools relates to the fact that your students are being recorded and we're collecting some information about the exam session. So what about that student data privacy? Respondus uses an approach called privacy by design. It's an approach that puts privacy and data security at the center of everything we do. So for example, Respondus Monitor will only gather and store the least amount of data needed from the student to effectively proctor and analyze those exam sessions. And part of the design is the design of what you just saw. That proctoring dashboard, the Respondus Monitor dashboard, can only be accessed by someone with the right credentials, like the instructor, in the WebAssign course. It's not on the internet somewhere. We can't look at your students' videos. We don't pop in on them. Those things can be very invasive, and it increases the risk that personal data can be compromised. Respondus Monitor has been vetted by countless institutions and some of the largest online programs in the world. And we have lots of details on our data privacy and student privacy and security approach at respondus.com/privacy. Now, there are a few ways to license Respondus Monitor for WebAssign. I promised I would cover this before we get to questions. If your institution has an unlimited license, first of all, you'll need to contact your Cengage WebAssign representative to set these up. You can't do this yourselves. So after today, if you're ready to get started or you want to try it out, reach out to your WebAssign representative. But you've got a couple choices to make. So you might want to think about how you want to license Respondus Monitor. So the first is the ability for institutions that have an existing Respondus Monitor license to link that license to the WebAssign courses, right? So you can just include WebAssign in the umbrella of your Respondus Monitor license. And if your institution has an unlimited license for Respondus Monitor, there's no worry about adding costs for using any other platform. But if your institution does not have a license right now, you can pass the cost to students to pay a fee directly. A lot of institutions do this because sometimes they give students choices over whether or not they want to use remote proctoring. So they would pay the fee directly. It is a flat $10 fee per course, right? So they don't have to pay per test. The payment platform is built right into the process of taking an exam. So hopefully you'll give them a practice quiz, which we'll talk about in a minute. Once they start that practice quiz, they'll be prompted to pay, and that's it. They never have to see those screens again, and they can use Respondus Monitor as much as they need to in that course. So we're going to talk about some best practices that include that practice quiz. First of all, we have a plethora of resources on our website, respondus.com/webassign. You don't have to initial cap it, but I did. That includes the setup instructions that we just reviewed for setting up your tests. It also includes the licensing information that I just went over. We also don't want you to forget that there's built-in troubleshooting and 24/7 live chat support for students, right? So you do not need to help them troubleshoot that webcam not working. We've got that covered. And then, as I mentioned earlier, one of the best things that you can do for your students, and instructors, you can do this for yourselves, is to make sure that students take a practice quiz before they use Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor for a graded exam. This is going to help them in a lot of different ways. It will make sure they've installed the right version of Lockdown Browser, right? The WebAssign version. It will make sure they have a supported device, a webcam that works, a strong internet connection. The practice quiz does not have to be anything complicated. Include 3 or 4 questions. Use them as, homework assignment or practice questions for an upcoming test, or even something that you create that asks the students some trivia or getting to know them a little better. One of my favorite examples of a practice quiz is an honor code attestation, where institutions will put the honor code in front of students and then ask them questions about academic integrity. How do you report cheating if you see it? Is plagiarism a form of cheating? That kind of thing. So that's just a way of giving students a method to practice using Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor so they can ask you questions, so they can troubleshoot if they need to, and so that you can make sure that your needs are met. Because if you see students in the practice quiz videos using their phones and you told them phones were not allowed, you can address those issues before they become a cheating issue, an academic integrity violation, right? So practice quiz, really important. All right, so again, we have lots of resources to help you out. That is the website where you can find them. If you have a question that you couldn't find an answer to, or you think of it later today, that's okay. You can email us at training@respondus.com. That is the training team that I'm on. You may have submitted a question today. Check the questions pane again, because our trainers might have put an answer in writing there for you. And I did record today's session, so all attendees will receive that recording automatically by email later. You don't have to ask for it. So with that, let's take some questions, and one of our other trainers named Rebecca is here. She's going to help me by reading them out loud, and we'll answer them for you. Rebecca, what can we answer?